Yes, it is. Welcome in on the Postgame show. That was a basketball game that Syracuse basketball won. A power conference victory. They have done it. First ACC win. They improved to 1-3 in the league. Wasn't pretty. I don't think we're going to come on here after any postgame this year and say that was a pretty win for Syracuse. It began with Donnie Freeman and news of Chance Westry being out of the game. The biggest news of the two of those, of course, Donnie Freeman. And the Orange won the game pretty much because they had the best player on the floor, who was J.J. Starling. And it's good to have him back. I'm not saying they would have won the games they lost without J.J., but this was a game where you say at the end of it, yeah, J.J. Starling was a big reason why Syracuse won. He made some free throws down the stretch. He hit an isolation bucket down the stretch as well. And Syracuse did just enough against a, frankly, pretty bad Georgia Tech team that didn't make really any shots in this game tonight. Certainly didn't make any free throws. Wow, that was quite the display at the free throw line from the Yellow Jackets. They were, in the end, 3 for 11. They were 1 for their first 9, so they did make their last 2 free throws to go 3 for 11 from the line. So we are here on the Burdick postgame show. Not Lexus, Burdick postgame show. Tim Leonard here with you, and we'll be here for the next hour or so. We'll get you the full postgame press conference from Adrian Autry after the first ACC win for the Orange in the year 2024-2025. And we can also take your chats and thoughts on our Cuse Sports Talk Twitch stream as well. The chatter's already in there right now. And we'll get to some of your comments during the breaks as well on CuseSportsTalk.com. We're here with you after every single Syracuse basketball game. We can also take your calls and your comments on the phone lines. That is 315-437-7644. Again, 315-437-7644. That's the phone number to call if you have thoughts after this one, if you have takes. Gotta say, wasn't really a basketball game that inspired a ton of takes or takeaways, for me at least. There are some things that I think we can get into. Interesting things with the rotation. It's interesting how this team has turned a little bit more towards offensive struggles, and they had enough defense. I thought the first half defensively, some of it is just Georgia Tech isn't very good, like we said, and Georgia Tech missed a lot of shots. But I thought the Orange had a good game plan defensively. They were going under a lot of screens, especially from their point guard, who is very good at passing, Nathan George, one of the top assisters in the nation entering this game. He had 5 assists in the end, but he was 1 for 7 from three-point range. So they did a good job scouting the opponent. And Georgia Tech, an offense that kind of makes sense. Damon Stoudemire has some NBA background. They just run a lot of ball screens. And Eddie Lampkin was put in a lot of those ball screens. That was something they were hitting on in the broadcast throughout. Lampkin was really quiet offensively in the first half to the point where it was like, man, are they just not getting him the ball enough? And it seemed like that was a point of emphasis. They came out early on in the second half and did get the ball down low to Eddie a couple times. He ends up with a double-double, 10 points, 12 rebounds for Eddie. He did have a bulk of his production in the second half, all 10 of his points, 7 of his 12 rebounds. Also had 4 second-half turnovers. Turnovers are just, I don't know why this team continues to have some of the dumbest and most head-scratching turnovers you'll ever see. And a lot of them just are live ball turnovers. They're really frustrating. I'm sure when they watch back the film collectively as a team sometimes, they're just shaking their head at some of these turnovers. The Orange end up with 18 turnovers again in this game. Remember, through the first, I think it was like 8 or 9 games of this season, pretty much pre-Maryland, this team was pretty good ball security-wise, and it's not like they played the easiest schedule ever. Turnovers weren't really a problem through the first, 10 games of the season. We're going on, this was game 15, and the last 5, really since Maryland, it has been a huge problem. And turnovers weren't really a problem last year for Syracuse. They haven't been a problem in recent memory for Syracuse basketball. the thing we were talking about turnover-wise for the first 10 games of the season was they aren't generating turnovers. And now it's just, you look at the box score at the end of the game, and 18 turnovers is not a surprise. So that is certainly something that still has to get cleaned up. But 315-437-7644, that's the phone number to call if you have thoughts after this one. We'll hear from Adrian Autry as soon as he goes to the podium at the Dome. The Orange winning this game 62-55. They do have a power conference victory here in the year 2025 and in the season 2024-2025. So their first power conference win. They did a good job rebounding the basketball in the second half. You talk about things that have been a problem with recent Syracuse teams. Rebounding has not been a problem this year. Outside of, I would say, the Florida State game, it was kind of a problem in the second half. And you worried a little bit, all right, no Donnie Freeman out there today. Obviously, that limits you in terms of rim protection. Not that Freeman has actually blocked that many shots. I looked it up. He's only blocked 5 shots all year. And Syracuse, somehow that's near the top of their individual player list in terms of blocked shots. Donnie's 5, but he is a lengthy guy. He was coming off a double-double. He had 6 double-doubles this year, so you lose some of his rebounding. And Syracuse was really dominant on the glass in the second half. 26-13 was the rebounding battle in the second half. Let's go to the phone lines for the first time this evening. And, of course, leading us off is Pat in Syracuse. Pat, what were your thoughts on the game?
Biggest takeaway is Carlos not starting.
Yeah, I'm sure you're happy about that. I know you've been calling for that, right?
I mean, I'd be a lot happier if we didn't swing and miss with this guy. I mean, you don't want to root for kids to fail, and you try to give them the benefit of the doubt for as long as your wits will tell you. But I just too many people that never agree on anything all agree that Carlos just shouldn't have been starting. I understand from a head coaching perspective, Red's got to stick with this guy for.
Well, I think it was out of necessity. I mean, I know you're going to laugh, JJ. But the ball handling was a real issue without JJ. Now that you have JJ back, I think they can get away with not having Carlos out there.
Yeah, it's just wild to me that, different games, his substitutions, it's just a tricky mix for him. I mean, you look at games where, Chapa can't even sniff the floor, and then you got other games where, he's your leading scorer, and then you got games where consecutive games where Cuff can't get in, and then you got other games where he's the leading scorer. So it's just still a mess. My biggest takeaway is our defense on free throws is one of the best in the country tonight. I mean, our defense on free throws was just outstanding. I think it was the 527 fans there that really made the difference with the free throw defense. I think moving forward, that could get us dancing. I mean, that is just an amazing defense. But what this was the battle for the ACC tournament, because as bad as Georgia Tech looked, they beat Boston College, and Boston College beat Miami. And I don't know how they beat Notre Dame by 10. Because that Georgia Tech team looked atrocious. I mean, just bad offense, bad defense, bad coaching. They have a great point guard, but other than that, nobody knows what they're doing on Georgia Tech either. I did think that it was going to get down to a one-possession game, and sure enough, it did late with that 3.
Oh, Pat, we got to cut you defense. Off. Red is at the podium.
Thanks,
we'll get back to you, though, if you want to. Let's go to the podium. Right. Here's Red Autry.
For your team, did it feel like you needed to win tonight? They had to grind through Donnie's out, a lot of circumstances.
Yeah, when you're struggling to get wins, every win, to get our first ACC win, and it's important for us, for the team. These guys have been battling, preparing, and fighting and clawing, all year. We've dealt with different things, and these guys just keep fighting. So I was just proud that we were able to, pull this game out tonight.
This is JJ's second game back since that 7-game absence. Can you describe where he's at and just how much he executed tonight?
Yeah, JJ's big time. He's the best guard, one of the best guards in this league, and one of the best guards in college basketball. And I think if you followed us through the stretch without him, and having him back now, I think you can see the difference and see how important he is. For us, it's hard to play when you don't have one of the best guards, not on your team but in the country. He's a guy that can make a lot of things happen. He made big shots tonight. I thought he defended. I thought he rebounded. He's just, he did a lot. But for 2 games to be able to come back and play, 36 minutes, and take the shots at the end, that was big time.
It seemed like every time y'all had a big shot, they came down and made one, and they kept you close all night. What type of fight did you see from the team tonight?
I mean, that's what I told our team. I said the way we fought, nobody was making shots. It was it was a slugfest, and I just loved the way we just kept playing. I thought we made some big plays in the half court. And I thought we made some big plays in transition. I thought we made a couple of smart fouls in transition. What we talked about, not giving them easy ones, let them take out on the side. But I thought, in particular, Eddie Lampkin made some really good defensive plays. I think he had, 2 blocks. He's probably, almost his whole total last year, but I thought he was active. Everybody that came in did a really good job, but, I was just proud of our toughness. We didn't shoot the ball well, but we just kind of, found a way to gut it out. Thought we rebounded the ball extremely well. So again, it was one of those old school games, just tough to score, but we battled. We kept battling.
Peter had some good minutes tonight.
Peter is a guy that's going to come in. He gives you everything he has. He's not the tallest guy, but he has a big heart, very high IQ. He's all about the team. He does all the dirty work. I think, every team needs a guy like him. And, he reminds me a little bit of, a guy that we used to have named Reg Dolezaj, in that no one knew about him. No one gave him a chance to play, and he just earned all his minutes, and he continues to earn his minutes and continues to contribute to our team.
What's his injury? When did he get hurt? And
it happened the last game, and right now it's just a lower leg injury, and I think it's day to day.
Coach, you talked about Chris Bell and how much he's been battling mentally with the game. We saw the last 2 games really awesome, especially down the stretch tonight. What does it mean to have him back to his regular self?
I mean, everything for this team. It's not a coincidence that we get JJ back and he plays well, and plays well, and we win. Chris Bell is a big part of what we do. Thought our guys did a good job of screening for him today, getting him loose, even though he didn't get a cut. He got more 3 attempts than he's had in the last couple of games, but being able to get him loose, and he put the ball on the floor and got to the rim, that was big for us. He made a big basket at the end off a little pin down, getting into the basket. But Chris is important for us. We need all hands on deck, but he's a guy that's returned. He's everybody knows he can shoot the ball, and he can round out his game, but we need him to score for this team to be successful.
how did Donnie's absence impact what you were able to do
Jair's a veteran. I think, they both have been productive for us. Both of those guys, I think, Jair is a guy that, if he gets more minutes, I think he'll produce more. But Donnie does a lot for us. He rebounds. He's one of the best. He's our leading rebounder. He's one of our best 3-point shooters. So that's the one thing that we miss, is having Donnie out there. That he's a guy that's capable of knocking down a 3 or 2. And I thought we missed that today.
Coach, 2 more. Coach, when you look at obviously Chris Bell and Elijah Moore, both those guys are your shooters, and they've been a little bit struggling. Does coaching them change at all when you're dealing with a guy who's been around your team for the last few years, when a guy, rather than Elijah Moore's a freshman? Does your coaching style change at all?
No, this game is about confidence. As a coach, you want to build your players up. You want to give them the ultimate confidence, and that's all I keep telling them. They get open shots, they got to take them. Doesn't matter if they make them or miss them. I'm coaching you. We need you guys to make those shots, and you will make those shots. So I give our guys ultimate confidence, especially guys that have proven that they can make those shots. Chris Bell is a guy that's proven. We know that Elijah can make shots. So we need those guys to take shots. So whenever we get them, we get a chance to get those guys the ball. We want to get those guys the ball, and they need to take their shots.
Right, another setback, but describe where he's at? Can he help you this year, or is he at crossroads?
Only thing I could make a comment on is that it was medical, so I don't, that's all I can really say about it. So, I can't say much about it.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, that is Coach Autry and his full post-game press conference, which you can watch on CuseSportsTalk.com on every Burdick post-game show and listen to here on our radio airwaves live here on our post-game show. Always brought to you by RomanoCars.com when we hear from Coach Autry here on the post-game show. So let's do this. Let's work in our first break because we are overdue for a timeout. 315-437-7644 is the phone number to call. We'll get back to Pat once we come back from the break, and we got some other people calling in already as well. After the Orange win this one 62-55, their first Power Conference victory of the season. More of our Burdick postgame show on the other side on CuseSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio.
Head coach Adrian Autry joins.
All right, Chad, how are we doing? I saw someone say that I'm not engaging with the trolls in the chat, like the last post-game host, maybe. Happy birthday, Jen, by the way. Glad they got a victory for you on your birthday. Yeah. Did he drop and then he came back? Why did he call twice?
Hey, I'm back.
Pat called while he was on the other line, for anyone that's confused why we're laughing. He probably thought he dropped.
Oh, you hear that?
Did you crack your neck?
I think I'm going to die at an early age from having a bad back.
Oh, I think you got me. It doesn't really matter, but you don't even have yourself on camera here. It's just me, solo stuff.
Oh.
No rapper either. You're failing.
I clicked
You're
it.
fired. Mike's fired. Hashtag fire Mike. Just kidding. I did not see him yell at JJ Gavendo. Pat is coming back, Super Cat. Yeah, the fourth Pat call of the day. Is that what it is? Yeah, Pat is never done.
Shoe came untied. Running so fast. Did I ever tell you the time I almost got caught vaping on an airplane?
No, this is an incredibly random story to bring up right now.
So last time I was on a flight, I'm a degenerate and I have a problem. So I went to the bathroom, and as I was coming out, I allegedly still had
allegedly
smoke in my mouth.
Uh-huh.
And I quickly said something as I came out of the bathroom, like quickly in passing to the flight attendant. And she immediately looks at me and goes, "Are you vaping?" And I was like,
No. What would make you think that? The smoke coming out of my mouth?
And she's like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Woo, that could have been bad."
She definitely knew you were, but just let it slide.
I would have been screwed if they asked to check my pockets. You know what I mean?
Ryan says, at least you admit it, Mike. I think in response to, I'm a degenerate.
It was like a 4-hour plane ride, dude.
Yeah, when did he yell at JJ Gavendo? I missed that. If
Maybe
it
he was
happened.
like, "Good job.
Yeah.
Good job, JJ. Welcome back. We missed you."
I don't think Pat has ever said he doesn't care. Second half, well, was it I guess I just missed it. This won't help me. He didn't get him the ball down low. Yeah, he was kind of calling for the ball a couple different times. Pretty hard.
I wish I had as much passion about anything that Pat has against his hatred for Eddie Lampkin.
Eddie Lampkin. I feel like
Or
it's
no,
Carlos. Yeah.
No, he hates Eddie.
I mean, he hates anyone that plays
That's
bad.
true.
He's bad. Hope he's in the chat right now. Although, he'd have to be on the line and in the chat.
All right, I'm leaving.
All right.
Kobe.
Well, don't go vaping out there.
I don't vape.
Right. You'd never do such a thing.
The only thing I smoke is fools like you on the b-ball court.
We've never played basketball, but we have shot a lot on this mini hoop in here. You know, if you would have said at the start of the year, Starling 21, Lampkin double-double, Chris Bell 13, ACC win at home, all is right in the world, right? This is a pretty boring game. Yeah, Doug Sherman. He's had a lot of Syracuse games this year. Then I would have asked you, okay, well, what's Syracuse's record? 7-8. Yeah, the team, they had to work a little bit harder for offense without Donnie. Makes sense.
This is the Burdick Lexus and Burdick BMW postgame show.
Yes, it is. After a win, a post-game show after a power conference victory. We have officially made it. Tim Leonard here on the post-game show. Next 40 minutes or so, just heard from Adrian Autry. You can always watch our post-game shows, QSportsTalk.com. We're also on the YouTube page as well. That's relatively new. You can hop in the YouTube chat, hop in the Q Sports Talk chat as well. We've got a lot of Twitchers and streamers out there right now staying up late night with us after the Orange get a win over Georgia Tech 62-55. You can call in as well, 315-437-7644. That is the phone number to call, and we go back to the phone lines right now because we rudely had to cut off our guy Pat before Adrian Autry's presser. So, Pat, where were we when Red cut you off?
Well, the biggest thing is with Freeman out, I was thinking about what lineups, once he gets back, have the highest ceiling. Brian had a good point that, he thought Chapa and JJ is probably the highest ceiling on the backcourt side.
Yeah.
Which I think from a scoring and versatility standpoint, absolutely. I would say Chapa and his size, lack of size of defense. I think what I'm looking for is not necessarily a lineup, this or that. It's style of play. We have guys that aren't really responding physically. I mean, when you look at Freeman, he checks a lot of boxes when he comes back, but he's not that physical. He's a great rebounder, but my whole thing is now ditch Carlos and just run. Run with Chapa, JJ, who excel in transition, Donnie Freeman, who excels in transition and is fast. Taylor can play transition. Even Peter can run the floor. You got a lot of guys who can run the floor. Cuff is athletic. The only guys that hurt us with that style shouldn't be playing as much as they are. I mean, Lampkin had a double-double, but I thought he looked awful out there. Stupid turnovers. Missed a lot of bunnies. He had a double-double. He played a lot better in the second half. I'll give him credit, but he did not start out the game well at all.
No.
And, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you agree or you're saying no.
Well,
no, he didn't,
I'm saying Eddie didn't start out the game well. He did some nice stuff. He actually ended up with a +10, which was the highest in the game, but I'm not really a big plus-minus guy every game. I'm just noting it because it was kind of surprising to me, if anything. Yeah, I think Red wants this team to get out and run. Like, that's kind of what he said in the... Yeah, we just don't get stops, really, right? I mean, I know tonight they did.
But do you ever see him coaching that? I mean, I don't see him. I mean, it's his job to run the team. It's his job to prioritize, and I just don't see it. I think this team could be. I mean, look, the ACC is bad. I mean, you could win 6 games and then, just accomplish nothing because when you look at Miami, even Notre Dame is not good. Boston College, Georgia Tech. I mean, there's a lot of teams that are bad, and unfortunately,
every team Syracuse has played is not a tournament. Even Wake Forest, they just didn't look that good. Like, I know they have some pieces, but it's a really down conference. I think in the past, we
have pieces though, Tim. I guess that's what I'm getting at. I feel like we have pieces. I mean, Donnie Freeman's a piece. JJ is a piece.
Yeah, you just named 2 guys that have been hurt, though. Yeah, I agree. I think JJ was the best player on the floor tonight, and as I led off the show with, I think they won the game mostly because of him, because, the offense, honestly, in the last 2-3 minutes, I was a little bit concerned with how slow it got. Like, we're talking about you want to see them get up and down, but JJ was still able to make a tough shot once, and you can kind of get into that mode when you're up and you have a guy like JJ who they've been missing.
Yeah, like I didn't feel like our defense necessarily predicated Georgia Tech looking as bad as they did. I just thought it was a sloppy game, style of play, slower paced. You know, and by the way, Georgia Tech, like I said earlier, they just missed so many free throws. That kept the scoring down, and then it allowed Syracuse to, use the clock. But I guess moving forward, if we're not going to be a successful team this year, I would at least like to see the athletes run and have some entertainment. Oh, by the way, Bell excels in transition because, the floor spread, he's not going up against a set defense. I mean, there's so many reasons that we should be running. And, oh, by the way, under the dinosaur, we played 6-7 guys. Now we actually have 11 guys who you don't have a problem with playing. I think you played Lampkin less. I think you played Carlos less. And I think you run. And I think you probably win a few more games that way. Because you do have the depth. You do have the athletes. And you know what? These guys think when they think, so just don't let them think and just let them run. I just can't believe he's not doing it more. I mean, he
the only thing with that, Pat, is, it's getting a little thinner here. Like 9 guys played. Cuff played 4 minutes. Carlos played 10. And you're on here talking about, and I don't disagree with you really, but Carlos should, if anything, play less. So, I'm with you, but also
guys, though. You got enough guys.
Right, you got enough guys, but it could be, like, if Donnie's out for, and Red, by the way, in his post-game presser said day-to-day. If Donnie's out for a little bit of time here, Red has talked recently about, I actually have noticed we're getting too tired at the end of games, and I'm going to try and avoid that more. So I think it's a balancing act, right? But, yes, I would like to see this team get up and down the floor more, and unfortunately, they just really haven't ever played like that. They play at a pretty decently fast tempo, but I'm with you. It doesn't feel like they are getting transition points like we would have expected. And some of that is they're just not forcing turnovers.
Yeah, basically it's the worst transition offense that Syracuse has ever had, and it shouldn't be. And that's where the coaching comes in. Thanks for the time.
All right, we appreciate it. That is Pat in Syracuse, who always calls in after the games here on our Burdick postgame show. You can call in next if you'd like, 315-437-7644. That is 4ESPN44 is the phone number to call. The Orange won this one, 62-55. They are 7-8 on the season now. They have their first Power Conference win. They will be on the road Saturday against Boston College. That is a game that they are also projected to win, just barely right now on KenPom. So you could be looking at a little mini winning streak right now. Who would have thunk it with the way that this team has played? It was not a pretty win here tonight, but Syracuse did enough, and a big reason why they won the game is J.J. Starling is back. They did it despite not having Donnie Freeman, who, again, Red Autry said postgame, he is day-to-day right now with a lower leg injury that he injured during the Florida State game. So Donnie, for my memory at least, did play crunch time in that Florida State game and played a good chunk of minutes. He had a double-double in that Florida State game. But that is what the coach said about him. He didn't have any comments on Chance Westry, who is out for this game today and could be out for a little bit of the near future here with a medical issue. Let's go back to the phone lines. Let's check in with Steve in North Syracuse after this one. How's it going, Steve?
Yeah, I think the analysis, instead of who should be the starting lineup in the next game, should be about how did we suddenly win this game when we just lost one of our best players. And we just got back one of our best players, and now we lose one. And when I heard that, I thought, the season is stillborn. We were just going nowhere. But here we go and win a game over a decent team. One reason that's been brought up is that we may have finally found a team that plays worse than we do. We shot 41%. They shot 36%. We were 4 for 20 from 3. They were 4 for 21. We were 6 for 9 from the line. They were 3 for 11 at 1.1 for 9. We had turnovers. They had turnovers. So they were kind enough to allow us to defeat them in some ways. But on the other hand, I thought our team played with energy and aggression throughout the game. When a team faces adversity, they either come together or they come apart. And for all the frustration that this team has provided over the year, this team looked like it came together.
Yeah.
I think maybe having Freeman out, as talented as he is, may have improved our defense. Having guys like J.R. Davis and Lucas Taylor in there more than maybe they normally would be probably made our defense a little more formidable than it normally would be. And we out-rebounded them by 9, which is amazing because we got a lot shorter without Freeman. Basically, we just showed the guts to hold on to that lead for the entire game, which is something that we hadn't been able to do in other games. So really a lot of positives came out of that. And if Freeman's a day-to-day injury, then there's reason for a bit of optimism.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course, you want him back soon. I'm with you, though. I think the defense played overall maybe their best game of the season. Georgia Tech did not impress you on the offensive end much, but the rebounding is really the reason why they won this game. And when you talk about, Pat just brought up maybe they should play Eddie Lampkin less, it's sort of hard to visualize them winning this game without Eddie here tonight. I know he wasn't really anything in the first half, but he does pull down 12 rebounds for you, and they were plus 13 in the second half on the glass after being down in the rebounding battle in the first half. So all good points there, Steve. I agree with a lot of that, and we'll see how they kind of figure some things out going forward. I think one thing for sure as we let Steve go, Elijah Moore is still a mystery right now, and I'm sure a lot of people want to see him get going. He's got to be like the first player in recent memory to not score and play 3 minutes in the previous game off the bench and then get moved into the starting lineup. He has not scored in now 4 straight games. And, before that, he was averaging about 14 points per game in the 6 games prior to that. So Elijah Moore is now kind of in that Chris Bell range of hasn't hit a 3 in a while, isn't attempting threes, is turning it over too much, isn't playing a ton of minutes. How do you figure him out? Do you move him to the bench? Do you keep him in the starting lineup? That's kind of this week's problem in a way. But Syracuse is getting more from Lucas Taylor. They do have J.J. Starling back. So they were able to do enough tonight, and that's kind of the story of this one. They did enough to beat Georgia Tech 62-55. Let's hit a timeout. 315-437-7644 is the phone number to call. That is 4ESPN44. We're back after this on QSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio.
This is Orange.
Crowd was announced at just under 14K. Yeah. Did not look, I wasn't there, obviously. Did not look like there were a lot of people there. But perfect storm. I mean, yeah, Pat, that's the thing. He scored 24 at Tennessee. So I think the idea of Reds rotations are confusing. Like some guy gets a lot of minutes, some guy doesn't get minutes. I mean, he gave Elijah Moore minutes tonight. He just didn't do anything. Other games, maybe you could make more of a case. He played 17 minutes. He was 0 for 3 from three-point range. Some of those were just like standstills. Did have a turnover tonight, so that's positive, I guess. But he just wasn't really a factor out there much. And, I think he's messing with the rotations a lot because the team is playing really bad. So on one hand, yeah, it's like I can't figure out what Red's thinking about with the rotations. On the other hand, it's don't you want him to still be tinkering and still be trying different stuff? Because, if he's not trying stuff and they just keep losing, then that's probably even more frustrating. But Yeah, Taylor's gotten a lot better. He had a couple annoying turnovers tonight, but that doesn't mean he's unique to this team. Oh god, we got to fire Mike again. He's got Steve still up on the graphic. Mike. Only kidding, Mike. He knows that. When Paulie says it, he could actually mean it. Who knows? I was framed. Yeah, I think you're right. I never, Taylor's offense was bad at the start of the year. I mean, his shot looked like off, and sorry I uttered Paulie's name. I apologize. Didn't know that wasn't allowed. But I don't know if his defense has gotten worse. I mean, he's now drawing the top guy a lot of times. He did a pretty good job on Salas from what I remember, even though he scored a lot. Shrewsbury carved him up pretty good. I say it out of love.
You know, they only lost today because Kyle Cuff, or they only barely won today because Kyle Cuff only played 4 minutes.
That's your take?
That's why. All right, it would have been a 40-point blowout. Kyle Cuff played more time. Dude, I wish Kyle was 4 inches taller. He'd be the greatest athlete I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. The funny story about that was he's listed at 6'2", and I did one of the exhibition games with Devo, and we were joking about it on air, and he was like, yeah, come on. He's 5'11" on a good day. And Devo was like, they said I was 6'4". It was just a funny moment. And then next day at practice, I saw Kyle Cuff, and I was with Devo, and he went up to Devo and was like, 5'11"? That's crazy. So, it's just pretty funny. Good. But he's probably 6 feet, if we're being honest. Although everyone gets an extra inch.
Except if you're 7 foot, then you lose an inch.
Yeah, maybe.
According to
some
KD.
guys look Donnie Freeman looks taller than 6'9". Actually,
yeah, he looks
but
a
it's
lot
just
taller.
because it's the KD thing. He's lanky and.
Well, I mean, KD is 7 foot tall though.
Yeah, KD is huge, and he's got such long arms. So we only got Pat and Steve tonight. I think that might be it on the.
We could have more.
Yeah, who wants to call?
For all those people
going once, going
for all
twice.
those people complaining in chat about Pat calling, you guys are when people don't vote and then complain about who won. Call. It's that easy. Just call.
This is the Burdick Lexus and Burdick BMW postgame show.
All right, we welcome you back into our studios on the postgame show. Orange won it tonight. Don't let them get hot. 62-55 victory over the Yellow Jackets of Georgia Tech. In a game where I'll borrow a line from our guy Jim Saddlin, who is the color radio guy on the Syracuse Sports Network. Coach Saddlin often jokes during games like this that they're not going to send the tape of this one to the Naismith Hall of Fame. They're not sending it to Springfield after this one. It was not the prettiest of games, but look, I think it's one of those things where if Syracuse was a really solid team this year with a winning record and they had done some fun stuff, you wouldn't really bat an eye or call this an ugly game, but it's just been one of those years where it feels like, oh, there's the Donnie Freeman injury. Everything's working against us, and even the wins don't feel that satisfying. So let's not take it for granted. It was a win tonight. It was the team playing in kind of a weird game that was physical with not a lot of fouls called. And did Georgia Tech play well? No, they didn't. Is Georgia Tech going to be a tournament team? No. But Syracuse won a game, and it was good to see J.J. Starling be back out there and be able to make a difference in a game that was close. Because, frankly, we've been wondering and we've been talking about how good would this team be with Starling. Well, let's see. Maybe they can get some positive momentum. I mean, the coaching staff has talked about throughout the season that they just need one here. They need a victory to kind of get over the hump. Now you got BC on Saturday on the road, but let's be honest, that's a pretty winnable game. BC is not some hostile environment. The Orange often pack that place with at least a 50-50 crowd split. And BC's got some shooters. I'm not saying you can just roll out the balls and beat them, but they're pretty similar to Georgia Tech, and it's going to be a pretty similar type of spread, and we're going to be saying that a lot for upcoming games. But you really do need to win that BC game, because after that, the schedule does get relatively tough for a very weak ACC overall this year. You do come back home for Louisville and Notre Dame. Louisville right now you're projected to lose. They are considered by KenPom one of the better teams in the ACC. They are down a couple key players, but the Cardinals brought in a ton in the transfer portal. First-year head coach Pat Kelsey, and they are 40th on KenPom right now. So some of you are probably laughing as I play the schedule game and all that, but it's worth noting right now, actually, KenPom has Syracuse losing 7 straight games after the BC game. Louisville, Notre Dame at home is probably 2 of the easiest in this stretch. You go to Clemson. Clemson has been borderline top 25. They beat Kentucky. They're a good team. So to Clemson is a tough one. You host Pittsburgh, who Pittsburgh is one of the few teams right now that does have an NCAA tournament resume. They are ranked 22nd on KenPom. Then you've got your Cali trip, and then you come back and host Duke. Good news is BC is the only team you play twice this year, and you've yet to play them once. So right now, those are 2 projected wins. For what it is worth, they are projected currently to go 12-19 on KenPom, 6-14 in conference, and that is including a projected 1-point win tonight. Didn't have Donnie Freeman. I don't know if the line shifted much after that news came out. But they still got the win, even without Donnie Freeman. And if you're just joining us, or if you missed Red's post-game press conference, he did say after the game, Donnie Freeman is day-to-day. That's all he could really share on it. He said it was an injury that he suffered during the Florida State game, a lower leg injury for Donnie Freeman. I'm sure all of you that are in the Q Sports Talk chat or listening right now saw that he did have a boot on his foot. So that is the deal with Donnie Freeman. And it would be great to get him back sooner rather than later. But you talk about, okay, how can you make the ACC tournament? How can you turn this into more of a positive season here? And you really, really needed wins this week, Georgia Tech and BC. You needed to get on the board. And we'll see where they go from here. If they got some more confidence under them. It still felt like they got a little bit tight late in the game, but the beauty of J.J. Starling is he's a guy that can get you that tough bucket, that can be a shot maker. I really felt like my big conclusion after losing the Wake Forest game was Syracuse just didn't really have the pieces down the stretch to get a tough shot when the game got late and into crunch time. And it wasn't just the Wake Forest game. That just comes to mind because that was a recent one, and that was the game where it was Carlos, Taylor, and Cuff who were doing the bulk of the scoring. Funny how things change. All 3 of those guys not in... Well, actually, Taylor did get to double figures. Taylor, for everyone that talks about no one's getting better on this team, and that's on the coaching, Taylor has made some strides. He's always been a pretty solid defender. He's drawing some tough assignments on defense. Taylor, 30 minutes tonight, 2 for 5 from 3. At the start of the year, it just felt like he wasn't a good shooter, which didn't really make sense because he was 34% at Georgia State from 3 last year. He averaged about 15 points per game last year for Georgia State. I think we're seeing a player who has just kind of gotten more confident and gotten more used to what his role is on this team. So that's a positive. Lucas Taylor's out there now, and he takes some tough shots, and I'm not really yelling at the TV or anything. He's just a guy that can go get you a bucket from time to time, which is a pretty big difference from where he was, I don't know, a month ago, a month and a half ago or so, going back to the start of the season. So Taylor has made some strides. Lampkin, I was getting ready at halftime to say they need more from Eddie Lampkin, and maybe that's what Red Autry told them because they went to him early on in the second half, and he did some nice stuff in the second half, and he was a plus 10, the best plus minus in this game overall. Eddie played 35 minutes. Starling, 37 minutes, was the most on the team. Interesting that Kyle Cuff, only 4 minutes. I thought Cuff was flying around. He was doing his usual stuff, but he did not positively impact the game. In the 4 minutes he was out there, he plays as hard as anyone, and I think that's why Red is willing to roll with him, especially when other guys aren't given that intensity. But I will say, I think Steve in North Syracuse made this point when he called in. If you have a thought, you can call in 315-437-7644. The team played hard tonight. For a team that is 0-3 in ACC play, let's face it, the Dome was not loud. I heard reports it was very quiet before the start of the game. And on that note, on the crowd, it makes sense that there would be not much of a crowd here tonight. It was the perfect storm. It was bad weather, no students. It's a Tuesday night, which is probably the least desirable night maybe in the entire week to go out to a game. It's not a good opponent, really. I mean, who in this area likes Georgia Tech? It's not like Syracuse and Georgia Tech have history of games. It's not like anyone on Georgia Tech is relevant or a coach or anything. So the opponent doesn't draw, which is the case for plenty of ACC teams at this point. I mean, SMU and other teams are going to be coming in down the road in later years. So it was just a perfect storm. The weather is crappy, no students, all that. It's disappointing that the crowd sizes have thinned out, but that's just the nature of it. They're 6-8, and if you win more games, I'm sure the crowd sizes will get bigger. So it wasn't too surprising to me. I found everyone was sharing videos of the crowd and stuff on Twitter, and I know it was a topic on the talk shows during the day. I heard some of you guys chatting in on Orange Nation talking about ticket prices and all that, and it's sad. It's a bummer, but I don't know if it's really much of a storyline. It is what it is right now. The crowds aren't going to be good when you haven't won a power conference game and all the things that I just laid out. So hopefully the Orange can summon some wins here. BC is next on the schedule. That'll be Saturday on the road for the Cuse. Then they will have 2 more home games right after that. So we'll hit our final time out here on the Burdick Postgame Show. If you have thoughts, call in 315-437-7644. That is for ESPN 44. You can hop on in the chat as well, and I'll answer some of your questions in the Cuse Sports Talk chat or on our YouTube page. You can watch and listen to the show on YouTube now as well on the Cuse Sports Talk YouTube page. We're back after this on ESPN Radio.
This is Orange.
The lighting in the dome, is it changed, Pat, or I've never heard that take. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Yeah, I hope Donnie is back quick too. It's kind of tough, M-Shag, to read the chat. I don't know how I say your name. M-Shag, is that how we're going? Kind of tough to read the chat as I'm talking, but I guess Paulie was on a Cuse Sports Talk only one, I think. So there's a little bit, I'm talking to people on the radio too. I don't want them to feel slighted when I'm just like looking down and reading. I like to take the time during the break. But I try to answer as much in the break as possible, because if not, thank you, Super Cat. Thanks for listening, guys. I'm surprised so many of you are hanging around. Satchel Sack, you can call. I think you've called before, right? Maybe I just always see you in the chat and Twitter and stuff. I don't know. No one would think you sound weird, I'm sure. Best wing place? I like OIP because that's very close to me. Kind of a different style of wing. Why am I blanking on? What's it called? Change of Pace? Is that what it's called? Change of Pace, right? I've gone there a couple times. That's pretty solid. What else is good for wings? I go to Blarney Stone a lot. Their wings are decent. Yeah, Paulie only made it 30 minutes, right? I was thinking about halfway through the game, how am I going to talk about this game for an hour? But, it's always easier than you think. Red talked for some of it, too. Red was quick to the podium tonight. I don't think I've ever had Pie Guys for pizza or wings. Seen it, though. Heard good things. Well, M. Shag, you're in luck because the next postgame show is me and Jordan. Saturday after BC. I've never had Eddie Lampkin's barbecue. I've heard good things. I think Devo's had it. Gavendo, I guess, can vouch for it. Although Gavendo saying I've eaten his food. Oh, not too bad. Okay. I thought you were just going to leave it at that. Be like, I have had it. Just not share anything. Yeah, I wonder what Pitar's cooking up. He's an awesome guy. I would say limited interactions with him. He's one of the nicest guys on the team. A lot of nice guys on the team. I just the really nice ones stand out. Naheem McLeod's a great dude. Wish he was a little bit better for his size and all that. Weird that we've gotten to a point where we're giving up on him. I mean, he played like 1 minute against Florida State, and then he just was on the bike the entire second half. Like, literally the entire second half, he was just getting in a workout on the bike. John Bull was a good guy as well.
This is the Burdick Lexus and Burdick BMW postgame show.
Final segment on the postgame show. Orange winners tonight, 62-55. Syracuse won, so hardly anyone's called in. That's how it works. Next postgame show will be after Boston College, after the next game on the road on Saturday. Brian Higgins will have the pregame. It'll be a duo postgame, me and Jordan Capozzi. So you'll have that to look forward to on Saturday. The Orange will be projected to win another game, probably be slight favorites in that game against Boston College. They do get their first ACC win of the season here tonight. We talked a lot going into kind of the new year and the ACC schedule being the full schedule. You can't say going into the ACC schedule because there was that Notre Dame game that you always have one of those early games now. Thank God they're not doing that early game as the first game of the season. Remember that Syracuse-Virginia game to open the season one year? Talk about ugly basketball games. Tonight was ugly. It wasn't quite as ugly as that one. That was like, I think Syracuse scored 34 points, and I believe, if I remember correctly, Cole Anthony, the UNC freshman, had the same amount of points in a different game in his opening night of college basketball as the entire Syracuse team. But we digress. Where was I going with that? Oh, yeah, the ACC schedule. So we talked a lot about, okay, you have a lot of wins here that could be had in the ACC, specifically in the early part of the schedule. Can you get some of those wins? And then you get JJ back, and then you might be able to flip some games that you're projected to lose into wins because you have JJ, and you start building some momentum. That didn't really happen, but it's not, I mean, there's still a lot of time left in this season. That was their fourth ACC game here tonight, and you play 20 ACC games. So we've got a long way to go. It is early in this thing at the moment, and you did get JJ back, if anything, on the early side. We laid it out earlier, but the schedule after BC gets a good bit tougher. Really, after the Notre Dame game, it gets very tough because you're talking about Clemson on the road, Pitt at home. You're talking about Duke at home in that stretch. And Clemson, Duke, and Pitt might be the three best teams in the ACC right now. You do get Duke at home, but I think we can all agree that is the lowest win probability, maybe of all the games that I just mentioned. Duke is the only top 25 team in the league right now. So that's the state of things. We'll see if maybe they can get some momentum. Do want to bring up the stats one last time here and kind of run down some things that stick out on the box score. We're always talking so much about the rotations with this team and what to take away after each and every game with the rotations. So, minutes-wise in this game, Syracuse, a couple things that stand out that we've hit on a little bit. Peter Majstorovic, I thought, was pretty good. If we want to just go player by player, I'll give a thought on each of the players here. Majstorovic played 12 minutes. He was 0 for 1. He did have 2 blocked shots, which is, I think, matched his season total going into this. The thing with Majstorovic, he had 4 fouls in 12 minutes. And let me tell you, I didn't think it was possible, based on how this game was officiated, for someone to be in foul trouble in this game. And Majstorovic still found a way to be in foul trouble. So that is something he's got to work on. He just fouls a ton when he's out there. I don't know what his fouls per minute are, but that's probably the biggest learning point right now with Majstorovic. Elijah Moore played 17 minutes in this game. We hit on this earlier. Moore is now 0 for 8 from 3 in the last 4 games. He was 0 for 3 tonight. He has not scored a single point in 4 games. So he is in a funk that is not quite Chris Bell in December levels bad, but it's kind of getting there. I said this point earlier. It's just weird to me because Moore was moved into the starting lineup partially because of the injury to Donnie Freeman, sort of freed up a spot, although that just went to Jair Davis, so not really. Jaquan Carlos is the one who dropped out of the starting lineup. If you missed that first time all year, Carlos did not start for the Orange. And, you know, with J.J. Starling back, Carlos might not be playing a ton going forward. He played 10 minutes here in this game. He had a very nice stretch of games where it felt like he was kind of hitting his ceiling in terms of point totals and stuff like that without Starling. Now that you have Starling back, I don't think we're going to see a ton of Jaquan Carlos in terms of, I don't think we'll see him in the starting lineup the rest of the year would be my guess, although you never know with injuries and stuff. The question really is, do you keep Elijah Moore in the starting lineup? I don't really care too much who starts the game. The bigger question is who is playing the majority of the minutes, and that's why I'm fine with Chris Bell just staying on the bench. Like, I don't understand if someone wants to call in or anyone has thoughts on why wouldn't you move Chris Bell back to the starting lineup. It seems that something clicked when he was coming off the bench against Florida State, and at this point I probably wouldn't mess with that if I'm Adrian Autry. So it seems like that might be the routine going forward for a guy in Bell who started, I believe, 75 games, all 75 games he played in at Syracuse in the first, 3 years almost of his career were starts, and then he came off the bench for the first time and broke out of his slump with 18 points against Florida State. He had 13 tonight, and again, he did have that one sort of shocking air ball, but his shot overall looked pretty solid. So Elijah Moore is the guy that it just feels like forever ago he scored 24 at the number 1 team in the country, Tennessee. Tennessee, by the way, did lose by 30 tonight to Florida, so they got a rude awakening in SEC play. I think Georgetown was hanging around with Marquette. That was the other game that I was sort of keeping tabs on. Malik Mack, which I know that'll upset Syracuse fans. He's been on a tear for Georgetown, but that Georgetown loss is looking better and better. I don't think they've lost since they played the Orange, and they were 3-0 in Big East play going into the game tonight. I can pull that up as we're talking here, how they fared against Marquette. I'm sure that game has gone final. But kind of going through these individual guys, and Kyle Cuff is another one. Oh, it looks like Marquette is up by 2 with 40 seconds left. So 7th-ranked Marquette up by 2 on Georgetown, 40 seconds left. Kyle Cuff, what do you do with him going forward? I think you give him some minutes off the bench in the first half and you see what you have. I do feel like the team collectively played harder tonight to the thought process of Kyle Cuff is going to get minutes because he's the only guy out there playing hard. Maybe goes down a little bit. But I feel like Majstorovic got some more minutes and Davis got some more minutes because of the Freeman injury. We'll see when they get Donnie Freeman back. I'm totally fine with Lucas Taylor getting the minutes that he is getting right now. And J.J. Starling is probably going to play 40 minutes a night, honestly. I mean, he played 37 in this game. He's, if anything, working his way back, but we know Starling is a guy that can play all 40 and is comfortable doing so. So, yeah, it's good to have J.J. Starling back. That's kind of the big takeaway from this game for me. It's also good to not be the team that when the game is over, you're saying free throws matter and not look down at the box score and feel like you are the team that gave away the game at the free throw line. That is what the Georgia Tech fan base is doing after this one tonight. They were 3 for 11 from the line, and they made their last 2 free throws. Final thing I'll say before we wrap things up here, just got to cut down on the turnovers. Got to find a way to get back to where we know they can live in a turnover per game basis, which was, they were about 10 turnovers per game in the first 10 games of the season. And since then, it's like 17, 18 a night. So the turnovers, I mean, at least get it under 15 against BC. And it's not like this was an up-tempo game, really. It's also, it's one thing if it's 18 turnovers and it is up-tempo and some of them aren't live ball. You're trying like funky, like hit-ahead, full-court passes. You can live with some type of turnovers. These turnovers they have are really like maddening at times. And it's just simple passes that aren't on the money. It's making the wrong decision. Little things that this team just needs to clean up a little bit. But they played a team tonight that you can get away with that stuff because Georgia Tech was off for one. And I don't think Georgia Tech's anything special. So that was a win. That was a basketball game followed by a postgame show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching on QSportsTalk.com. Full slate of shows back tomorrow. Do want to give a shout out to the Orange women's team. They're in the next one to take the hardwood on Thursday. I'll have the call for that game here on ESPN Radio Syracuse at 10:30 a.m. School day on Thursday. Expecting about 11,000 students from the greater Syracuse area for that game against SMU. So the Orange women do have 2 home games this week. They'll play Miami on Sunday. But that game I bring up because Thursday there will not be the normal slate of shows. Well, actually, Brian will have his show, and there will be the Cody Mack show. There just won't be Orange Nation from 12 to 2 because we will be broadcasting the women's game probably when that show was set to start. So keep that in mind for Thursday. But tomorrow, normal slate of shows, Orange Nation. I believe Steve is back tomorrow as well with Pauly. So 12 to 2, Steve and Pauly. You get Pauly after a win. So maybe he will be happy for a change and not trolling all of you in the comment section. 12 to 2, Orange Nation tomorrow. Cody Mack show at 3. Sports show with Cody Mack. And then the 315 with Brian Higgins at 4 tomorrow. But that is the Burdick postgame show. We'll catch you next time on the postgame show on Saturday. It'll be me and Jordan. Until then, have a great night, everyone, and go enjoy a Syracuse win in the year 2025. We'll catch you next time.
The Sports Show.